Today, our case story exposes just how dark the human heart can be when an innocent little boy became the target of a heinous act from the most unlikely of persons. But before we embark on a journey to uncover this dark truth, it's my pleasure to welcome you all, both new and old viewers, to the channel where we tell true crime and scary stories. Now, if you haven't as yet, I hope you like, subscribe, and join us as we explore more dark tales from around the world. And so, our story begins. On Tuesday, October 27, 2020, a father, Christopher Prisby, experienced the worst nightmare any parent could ever dream of. See, as he opened his bedroom door, he was met with a sight that crumbled his entire world. There was his 3-year-old son Henry laying unresponsive beside a bed covered in blood. Christopher quickly went to his side and dialed 911, telling the dispatcher that his son wasn't breathing. The minutes felt like hours as he was waiting for paramedics to arrive, and Christopher did all he could, trying to pump life back into his son's chest by administering CPR. Fire rescue personnel and paramedics arrived to the scene at the Sanctuary Community Home at Jacksonville Beach, and as they darted to the main bedroom where Henry was laying unresponsive, they were met with a heartbreaking scene. But nonetheless, this was what they were trained to do: save lives. So even in the chilling moment, they sprung into action, doing everything they could to try to resuscitate little Henry before sending him off to the hospital, wishing for a miracle. Now, everyone was hoping and praying that Henry would pull through, but unfortunately, Henry was pronounced deceased. A little boy's life was lost prematurely from this world, but the question remained: what happened? Was it an accident? Was it by natural causes? Or the question everyone was scared to ask: was little Henry murdered? Now, the on-call detective arrived at the scene to begin investigations, and the first thing he noticed was the father, Christopher, outside, and in his own words, the detective said Christopher looked like he was suffering immense agony. And one could believe that to be true, given that he had not just only lost his son, but witnessed him being lost. The detective reached out to Christopher and started a conversation, and that's when Christopher told the detective that he and a 46-year-old woman named Amy Lewis Oliver were parents of the now deceased boy. Christopher went on to tell the detective that on that same day around 1:30 p.m., Amy came to his residence to pick up Henry. See, the two were not on mutual terms. In fact, Amy's older living son told authorities that they were embroiled in a very messy custody battle over Henry. Now, police reports further state that the older son told authorities that Amy allegedly was quite adamant she didn't want another child. However, having gotten into a relationship with Christopher, she allegedly conceded into having the baby. Unearthed court documents show that on August 7, 2018, Christopher filed in court for a paternity test to determine if Henry was actually his, and for a parental plan to be put in place. See, just 2 weeks before Henry was found passed away at his residence, the custody battle concluded with both parents being awarded shared custody with a detailed parental plan showing scheduling and financial aid. So on the day Amy came to pick up Henry, that was a part of the agreement. However, something was different about this particular day. See, Amy didn't just pick up Henry and leave. Instead, she said she was tired and requested if she could rest before going back to a Green Cove Springs home with Henry. Finding it within himself to accommodate the request, Christopher allowed her to sleep in his bedroom along with their son. From there forward, Christopher's recollection of what happened took a very dark and haunting turn. See, Christopher said that after 3 hours, he became very suspicious because he was thinking to himself that 3 hours is a long time to take a nap. Remember, at this point, these two are basically bitter rivals, so why spend the time you have with your son at the residence of the person you don't like instead of having the comfort of being in your own home, enjoying the quality time with your son? See, Christopher decided he was going to check upon them, but he couldn't. See, when he turned the doorknob, the bedroom door was locked. Christopher began knocking, but there was no response, so he began banging harder and louder until finally Amy responded, telling him to hold on, she was on her monthly. Now at the same time, Christopher's phone alerted him to a text message that was coming in, and it was clear that this was no coincidence when he opened the text message and saw what was inside. The text message was from Amy, and it read, "Hindsight being what it is, if I'd known the extent you go to make me pay for not staying with you, I'd have terminated the pregnancy. And you know I was so concerned and fearful about being a single mom again. When he was born up breathing, a big part of me hoped they would not be able to revive him. I gave you an amazing gift and suffered significantly for it. You brought this on yourself. In order to fully grasp the gravity of another human being's perspective, I'm gifting you all your own mental health disorder. It's never a good idea to take so much from a person that they lose all hope for their future, and it's not up to you what their idea of a happy life." Instantly, an ominous feeling washed over Christopher as he knew something terrible was wrong. He mustered all the strength he could and kicked the door, smashing it down, and that's when he was met with the horrific scene of his son being unresponsive behind the bloody bed. Amy, by that time, was already locked inside the bathroom that was attached to the bedroom. When Christopher dialed 911, he told the dispatcher that the mother of his child just tried to murder their son, but the true depth of what actually happened became clear as time progressed, showing just how demented the human heart and mind can be. After Henry was taken out of the room by authorities, Christopher made forced entry into the bathroom, then stepped aside for rescue personnel to take over the situation. But even with authorities right before her, Amy remained unfazed. In fact, it was the total opposite. See, as they made entry into the bathroom, there they saw Amy standing in nothing but her underwear and an uncapped syringe in her hand, making a lunging stabbing motion to the first person that tried to get to her. Now, there's no telling at this point if there's a dangerous substance in the syringe, so I'd imagine that it made an already intense situation even more intense. Amy was unhinged, so much so that he pushed a professional who was trained in dealing with these dangerous situations to the point of being fearful for his life, causing him to back away and shut the door, leaving Amy inside. Backup came and they made entry into the bathroom again, and finally they were able to subdue Amy, and that's when they noticed large cuts on her leg, her neck, and her wrists, and not to mention the state of the bathroom as if mirroring the bed that was outside. See, the curtains in the bathroom had bloody handprints all over, with so much blood that it painted the bathroom red. Officers also found Amy's purse, cell phone, and a blood-soaked razor, which they believe she used to injure herself. Now inside of the purse, they found a bunch of medications, one of which was the sedative temazepam, and at that point, they had no idea just how crucial it would become to the case. Now that Amy was finally subdued, she was taken to the hospital where she underwent surgery for her injuries, and on the following day after Henry had passed away, Amy was interviewed at the hospital, and that's when key statements she said stood out. See, Amy was saying things like, "I wasn't supposed to be here, I didn't intend to live, I didn't want Henry to grow up without a mother, I just wanted to take him away from here." From the demeanor and questions of the interviewing officer, Amy eventually put two and two together that she was the subject of an investigation and requested a lawyer at that point. Right then and there, the interview was terminated, but not before she said he did not suffer. With statements like those, all the evidence was pointing at Amy being the main suspect in what investigators were now calling a homicide. Amy was arrested, but at that point she wasn't charged with any involvement in the murder of Henry. She was charged with aggravated assault of an emergency medical care provider and possession of an illegal substance, and was placed on a $150,000 bond. However, those charges would escalate when the dark truth of what she actually did was revealed. The start of that discovery came with the execution of a search warrant on Amy's cell phone on November the 4th, and from forensic downloads, 2 emails were found, dated October the 26th, one day before Henry's death. Now the weird thing about these emails, both these emails were scheduled for delivery on the day Henry was murdered. Not before, not at the point in time, but specifically after at around 5 p.m. Now, if it were 2 random emails, then there would be nothing suspicious about anything going on, but the contents of these 2 emails hinted towards something meticulously planned. One of the emails was scheduled to be sent to a group of recipients, and it contained court proceedings between Amy and Christopher involving child custody. But the telling part of the email was where Amy placed blame on the recipients for allegedly allowing Christopher to bully her. Now, the other email was scheduled to be sent to Amy's older son. Affidavit details based on some of the contents of the email that contained information regarding Amy's finances as well as what she would want done with her body. Other parts were final words to her oldest living son about regrets about what she was about to do, and called Christopher her own personal terrorist who pushed her over the edge. And in the message, Amy says, "I love you so much." By now, the ominous message that Amy had sent to Christopher when she locked herself and Henry inside of the room all began to add up. See, Henry didn't die by natural causes, nor by accident, and saying that he was murdered doesn't quite describe how twisted his end was. See, Henry's murder was premeditated, and what's worse, by his own mother. Amy didn't in a fit of rage or a spur of the moment decide to take her and her son's life, but it was all planned out and down to the finest detail, with the hidden purpose of inflicting trauma on the father of her child, Christopher. That was the intention for the words in the text message. Y'all are the type of people who have to experience things for yourselves in order to fully grasp the gravity of another human being's perspective. I'm gifting you all your own mental health disorder. The medical examiner confirmed the shocking tale of mother-turned-murderer to her own son. 3-year-old Henry's cause of death was listed as drug toxicity from temazepam and ruled a homicide. Amy left no room for failure because the toxicology reports showed a potentially lethal level of the medication in Henry's system. Now, investigators were listening in on recorded telephone calls that Amy made while locked up in Duval County Jail, and what they heard was shocking to say the least. On November 2nd, 2020, Amy spoke in detail about the murder of her 3-year-old son to her older living son. She told him that she entered the bathroom to finish what she started by filling a large syringe with air in an attempt to stick it in her carotid to give herself a stroke. See, Amy knew the anatomy of the human body this well because she was a registered nurse. On November 4th, Amy was on another phone call, this time with her sister, telling her, "He did not suffer. I just wanted you to know that, not one bit." On November 12th, she was again speaking to her older son, telling him that he, referring to Henry, was so sweet, he loved me so much, and I loved him. What do you think I was saving him from? Now on January 7th, 2021, she was again speaking to her older son, telling him, "I want you to know that I never, with you, I never thought about doing what I did." Amy was caught admitting to the sick act, but the strange thing was that it appeared she believed her actions were noble. With the new evidence, Amy's bond was revoked and her charges were updated to include murder in the first degree, aggravated child abuse, and child neglect. At the trial, the father entered the courtroom clutching his son's favorite toy as he delivered an emotional speech, speaking from the perspective of his son, referring to Amy as the evil person. In the end, Amy pleaded guilty and dodged life imprisonment hovering over her head if convicted for first-degree murder. Her plea deal reduced her charges to second-degree murder and aggravated assault on an emergency medical care worker. Amy was sentenced to 40 years for the murder charge and 15 years for the assault charge, which will both run concurrently. Amy called a twisted act a gift to her ex-lover Christopher as a way to get back at him. It's a tragedy for any child's life to be taken, but it's unforgivable for a parent to take their own child's life, much less as a way to inflict trauma on their ex. Amy used her knowledge as a registered nurse meant to save lives to take the life of an innocent little boy who called her mother. Thank you again for spending this time with me during this case story. Don't forget to leave your comments below. There's a lot more videos on the channel, so if you like more cases in this story format, then I personally recommend this video for you. But if you like more detailed breakdown cases with extensive research in documentary format, then this is the video for you. Until the next one, be you, be true, be safe.